The Austin Princess is a series of large luxury cars that were made by Austin and its subsidiary Vanden Plas from 1947 to 1968. The Princess name was also used as follows. From October 1959 the name Princess was used on a deluxe version of BMC's mid-sized 6/99 and 6/110 and A99 and A110 cars. From October 1962 Princess was used on a deluxe version of the Austin Morris 1300. From September 1975 Princess was used as a name for mass-produced family cars in Leyland's 1800/2200 former Austin Wolseley range. Naming: the first Austin Princess A120 was launched in 1947 as the most expensive flagship model in the Austin range at the same time as the A110 Austin Shearline, which body was built on the same chassis at Longbridge. The A110 produced 10 less horsepower, being fitted with a single carburetor. Both cars always had bodies that were massive and heavy in appearance. The Princess featured a body by the coach builder Vanden Plas and was a large saloon or limousine. The car was offered with two distinct interiors. The DM, or limousine type, had a sliding glass partition between the driver and rear passengers plus picnic tables, and the DS was the saloon. The saloons were successful as a top executive car. Many Princesses were bought for civic ceremonial duties or by hire companies as limousines for hire. The standard saloon weighed almost 2 tons, was 16 feet 9 inches long and 6 feet 1 1/4 inches wide on a 10 foot 1 1/4 inch wheelbase. The Princess model was updated over the years through Mark I, Mark II and Mark III versions, the largest variation being the introduction of the long wheelbase version in 1952 with a longer body and 7 seats. Apart from that, the bodywork and running gear hardly changed, nor did the 4-liter straight-six engine. The radiator was fairly upright in old-fashioned style and the car had separate front wings, but these cars were always more modern in style than the equivalent-size Bentley or Rolls-Royce and, for the saloon, the price was little more than 2/3 of the Rolls-Royce. From August 1957 the Austin part of the badging was dropped so it could be sold by Nuffield dealerships. From May 1960, the Vanden Plas name was added in front of Princess. Austin Princess I, II and III. In 1947, Austin produced two virtually identical chassis, one for the A110 and the A120 chassis used by Vanden Plas to produce the Princess at their Kingsbury works. Although Vanden Plas was by now wholly owned by Austin and much of the running gear and instrumentation was the same in the two cars, the Princess was the Austin flagship, with a higher specification leather, wool and burr walnut interior. The original Princess was powered by a 3.5-liter straight-six engine. This was enlarged to a 4.0-liter unit without further modifications. The Princess was often built to order. Customers could specify the color required and a range of different setups were available. These included triple or single carburetors and twin or single exhaust systems. Whilst the sportier multiple carb version performed better, it tended to achieve only 12 to 14 mpg. The single carb however gave slightly better fuel consumption. Performance was very good for a car of its size, with a top speed of 90 miles per hour and acceleration 0 to 60 miles per hour of 20 seconds. In 1950, the limousine version was introduced. The chassis length and passenger area were enlarged to enable a pair of drop-down seats to be mounted on the rear of the front seats and a glass division was standard. All of these early cars are now extremely rare, especially the saloon versions. Many of the saloons were converted for use as taxis in the late 1950s, fitted with Perkins diesel engines to overcome economy issues. During the life of this model, Austin became part of the British Motor Corporation. Austin Princess 4 and Princess 4. The Austin Princess 4 was introduced in 1956. Offered in saloon and touring limousine models, this replacement for the former Shearline and A135 only stayed in the catalogue until 1959. 200 were built. The last A135 Mark III had been priced at 5 times the price of an Austin A30. The new 4 had to be priced at 6.5 times the price of an Austin A30, at which price there was almost no demand. The name was shortened in August 1957 when the car lost its Austin designation, now being branded simply as the Princess 4 so it might be sold by either Morris or Austin dealers. The Times tested the Princess 4 and reported on it at some length in early February 1959. The Princess 4 was discontinued in 1959 and replaced in the catalogue by a much smaller model, an upgraded Austin Westminster, which retailed at little more than 40% of the Mark IV's price. An Austin Princess 4 was road tested by the Autocar magazine on October 3, 1958, as number 1703 in the series. The engine was rated at 150 bhp and it returned a maximum speed of 98.7 miles per hour, under the test conditions prevailing. Austin Princess, Princess and Vanden Plas Princess Long Wheelbase Limousine, the Austin A135 Princess Long Wheelbase Saloon and Limousine were introduced in 1952. The automatic transmission and power steering from Princess 4 were fitted from 1956. The marque name was changed from Austin to Princess in August 1957, and then to Vanden Plas from July 1960. The long wheelbase models continued to be built by hand in limited numbers as the Vanden Plas 4-litre Princess Limousine, until 1968. All now being parts of British Leyland, the Jaguar Mark X-based Daimler DS420 was initially produced at the Vanden Plas works in Kingsbury, North London, then replaced the Vanden Plas Princess within the new, slightly rationalised range. This had been foreseen in 1966 when British Motor Holdings had brought BMC and Jaguar together, and stopped development at Vanden Plas of the potential successor car. The limousine was luxuriously appointed with lots of polished wood, optional mohair rugs and radio with controls in the armrest. Among the long list of available extras were monograms and a flagstaff. The driving compartment was separated from the rear of the car by a division with an optional telephone for the passengers to communicate with the driver. The driving seat was finished in leather but the rear seats were trimmed in cloth, the usual arrangement on many luxury cars of the time. Though not as durable as leather, cloth was considered kinder to passengers' clothes. To increase seating capacity, two occasional seats could be folded out of the floor. The car had independent coil suspension at the front with semi-elliptic leaf springs and anti-roll bar at the rear. The cam and peg type steering gear had optional power assistance. An Austin A135 Princess Long Wheelbase Limousine tested by the Motor magazine in 1953 had a top speed of 79 miles per hour and could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 23.3 seconds. A fuel consumption of 15.1 miles per imperial gallon was recorded. The test car cost £2,480 including taxes. An automatic limousine was tested by the British magazine The Motor in 1962 and had a top speed of 86.2 miles per hour and could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 23.5 seconds. A fuel consumption of 15.8 miles per imperial gallon was recorded. The test car cost £3,473 including taxes. From the sign in the photograph, delivered to the Royal Mews in 1972, this car was one of the last ever Princesses. Although they went out of production in 1969, two were kept aside, as an alternative to the vastly more expensive Daimler limousines, for the use of junior members of the royal family on official engagements. For this purpose they were repainted in royal colours. In March 1974 this vehicle was returning Princess Anne to Buckingham Palace following a film premiere when it was brought to a halt by a white Ford Escort in the mall. The Princess's bodyguard and chauffeur were both shot and injured in the ensuing struggle with a would-be kidnapper. Princess Anne was fortunately unharmed despite being manhandled by the assailant. Princess 3-litre and Vanden Plas Princess 3-litre. In October 1959 a new Austin A99 Westminster-based model was launched under the name Princess 3-litre. From July 1960 these vehicles bore the Vanden Plas name, which became a badge-engineered brand in its own right. The car was a great deal smaller and less than 44% of the price of the previous Princess 4 saloon and was instead largely identical to the Austin A99 Westminster and other models using the same Pininfarina-designed body shell. It featured a new Vanden Plas grille, round headlamps, and horn grilles on the front. The interior was lavish in typical Vanden Plas style, featuring bare walnut wood trim, leather seats and panels, and high-quality carpeting. A division between the driver and the rear compartment was an optional extra. Power was a 3-litre unit developing 108 horsepower. A 3-litre Vanden Plas Princess with automatic transmission was tested by the British magazine The Motor in 1961 and had a top speed of 99.3 miles per hour and could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 16.1 seconds. A fuel consumption of 21.1 miles per imperial gallon was recorded. The test car cost £1,467 including taxes. This model was replaced in 1961 by the Vanden Plas Princess 3-litre Mark II. Styling was similar but the wheelbase was 2 inches longer and anti-roll bars were added to the suspension at both ends of the car. The engine was uprated to 120 horsepower. Better brakes were fitted, and interior improvements included built-in drop-down picnic tables for the rear seat passengers. Options now included Smith's air conditioning. This model was discontinued in 1964. Vanden Plas Princess 4-litre R. The Vanden Plas Princess 4-litre with its Rolls-Royce all-aluminium 175 bhp engine was announced in August 1964. With an unusually high power-to-weight ratio, the car gave easy cruising at 90+ mph and was capable of 112 miles per hour. The big change was under the bonnet, where there was a result of more than 2 years technical collaboration between BMC and Rolls-Royce. The aluminium Rolls-Royce FB60 engine was a short-stroke version of the Rolls-Royce military B, 4, 6 and 8-cylinder units, of which more than 30,000 had already been produced. The 6-cylinder engine weighed only 450 pounds. Its cubic capacity was 3.909 litres. Over square bore was 95.25 mm, stroke 91.44 mm. With a 7.8:1 compression ratio, its output was 175 bhp at 4,800 rpm. Twin SU carburetors were fitted. Both block and head were aluminium, tappets were hydraulic self-adjusting operating on overhead inlet and side exhaust valves. The counterbalanced crankshaft ran in 7 bearings. The new car was priced on a par with a Jaguar Mark X, just 50% more than its apparent predecessor, the 3-litre car. It was a major change of market positioning aimed at the growing prestige and executive market in Europe and the United States. The 4-litre was replete with polished walnut fascia padded top and bottom, hide upholstered seats with fully reclinable backs and polished picnic tables for the rear passengers. A new automatic transmission was provided, Borg-Warner Model 8, its first use in a British car, and hydrosteer variable ratio power steering accompanied wider tyres. Externally, the fog lamps were moved up by the grille, the hindquarters tidied, extended and adjusted to look more substantial, and the tail fins replaced by small corner ridges. A £1,346, a £1,994 Vanden Plas Princess 4-litre R, a £2,022 Jaguar Mark X, a £5,517 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud 3. The background to the pricing was that from April 1961 tax relief on company cars was allowed only up to £2,000. Joint production capacity of 12,000 cars a year was provided, and final assembly and hand finishing was at the Vanden Plas Works in Kingsbury, London. This car was a result of a joint BMC/Rolls-Royce project for a smaller Bentley codenamed Java. Prototypes were made using the Austin-engineered central portion of the Vanden Plas, with restyled Rolls-Royce and Bentley panels front and rear. Neither of these models made it into production. Rolls-Royce withdrew from the venture. They had been covering the possibility that the survival of their motorcar division might depend on providing a relatively compact mass-produced Rolls-Royce. However, 1965's introduction of the Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow was a success. The Vanden Plas Princess 4-litre remained in production until 1968, just ahead of BMC's merge into British Leyland. About 6,555 were built. It was the only mass-produced civilian vehicle from another manufacturer ever to use a Rolls-Royce engine. Vanden Plas Princess 11,001,300. The Vanden Plas Princess 1100 was launched in 1963 as a luxury variant of the BMC AD016. Production of the Princess 1100 and subsequent 1275 and 1300 models ended in 1974 with 43,741 examples produced. Princess. The final use of the Princess name was for the Princess 1800/2200 of 1975 €78 and the Princess 1700/2000/2200 of 1978 €81. This was not badged as an Austin on the home market, but was sometimes confused with one because for the first year of its life it was marketed as the Austin, Morris, and Wolseley 18 €22 series. It was succeeded by the Austin Ambassador in 1982 and thus marked the end of the Princess, although the Vanden Plas name continued as the most luxurious trim level in the Rover SD1 range. References. External links. 1957 Austin Princess for sales brochure Saloon and Touring Limousine and Austin Long Wheelbase Limousine, 1958 Austin Princess for Saloon, photos of earlier production.